Hello everyone, my name is Jun Park and I'm an economics professor at the University of Northern Colorado. In this video, we'll explore how to make rational decisions using two key economic concepts, marginal utility and total utility. Let's start with utility. Utility refers to the level of satisfaction and happiness a consumer experience when purchasing or consuming a good or service. Therefore, marginal utility is the additional satisfaction or happiness a consumer gains by consuming one additional or one more unit of a good or service. The key phrase here is one additional unit when we understand marginal utility. To understand better this concept, marginal utility, let me share an interesting example with you. Imagine this. You've set a New Year's resolution, so you want to complete a 5K race. After practicing and then running 5K, you probably feel very sweaty and feeling thirsty. A cup of cold water sounds really good. So let me share 5 cups of water and how we can understand better utility and marginal utility. Here is my first cup of cold water. I'm super thirsty, so I'm going to enjoy my first cup of cold water. This tastes really good. Using the concept of utility, I'm going to assign the level of satisfaction or happiness, such as arbitrary number 10. I'm really happy with my first cup of water. After running 5K, I'm still very thirsty. That's why I want to have second cup of cold water. This is still refreshing, but somewhat this is not as satisfying as the first cup of water. Therefore, let me assign another number, which is slightly lower than 10 from the first cup of water. I have 3 more cups of water. If I decide to drink third cup of water, somewhat this is not as good as the first 2 cups of water. Therefore, I will assign even lower number 4. Here is my 4th cup of water. I'm not quite thirsty, but I feel like I can have 1 more cup of water. So let me drink it. I only get small amount of utility, such as 1. Even though I still have my 5th cup of water, I want to ask you the question. Should I have my 5th cup of cold water? And probably my answer is no. Simply because the nature is calling me, I might need to just go and pee. Therefore, I would like to assign the utility from the 5th cup of water, such as -2. If I decide to drink the 5th cup of water, this would be my irrational decision making. Therefore, I'm not going to drink this 5th cup of water. So using this simple example, we try to understand the concept of utility and marginal utility. We can also learn the concept of marginal utility using a table or a graph. The level of utility that I receive from the first cup of water is 10. So I put 10 after drinking the first cup of water. And marginal utility from the second cup of cold water is 7. Still high number, but it's not as high as the first cup of cold water. As I keep drinking a cup of water, the utility level from the third cup of water is 4. And as I have one more cup of water, the utility level is only 1. As I explained, I had enough water, and if I decide to drink the 5th cup of water, it's going to be -2. In other words, nature is calling me, I don't need water anymore. Using these numbers, we can also plot a graph to understand marginal utility. What is the marginal utility from the first cup of water? It's 10. And the utility from the second cup of water is 7. And the marginal utility level from the third cup of water is 4. Let me do one more. The marginal utility from the fourth cup of water is, it's only 1. As I explained, I wouldn't necessarily have the 5th cup of water simply because it's negative marginal utility, and if I decide to drink the 5th cup of water, it's going to be irrational decision making. As we connecting these dots, we can derive marginal utility curve. And as you see, marginal utility tends to decrease, and we call it diminishing marginal utility. And let's move on to total utility, which will help us understand the concept of utility and marginal utility. The definition of total utility is the summation of the utility that we get from the consumption of good and service. Here, we are going to add up the level of marginal utility as we consume the first 4 and 5 cups of water. Do you remember the utility that I got from the first cup of water, which is 10? As I had the second cup of water, the utility level was 7. Therefore, the total utility from the first 2 cups will be 10 plus 7, which is 17. As I had one more cups of water, the total utility is now 10 plus 7 plus 4, which is 21. Then what would be the total utility from 4 cups of water, which is 10 plus 7 plus 4 plus 1, which becomes 22. Do you remember the utility level if I had the 5th cup of water, which is -2? So total utility from all of the 5 cups of water will become 10 plus 7 plus 4 plus 1. Lastly, -2, which becomes 20. As you can see, the total utility will increase. However, at some point, it may start decreasing when we start over-consuming. Using these numbers, I'm going to plot a graph for total utility. The total utility for the first cup of water was 10. And total utility from 2 cups of water is 10 plus 7 is 17. The total utility for 3 cups of water is 21. And total utility from 4 cups of water is 22. Lastly, the total utility from 5 cups of water is only 20 because we receive negative utility if I drinking too much of water. As we connect all these dots, we can derive the graph for total utility. And as you see, total utility tends to increase when we consume the same good over and over. However, at some point, we see that total utility start decreasing. This is because of the overconsumption that I had from the 5th cup of water. That's why we consider the drinking 5th cup of water is irrational decision making. And this is how we understand total utility using the definition, table, and graph. This is how we make rational decision making, and I hope you understand what is the concept of utility, marginal utility, and total utility when you make decisions. Lastly, I really hope that you enjoy watching this video and understand and try to apply these economic concepts to your daily life. Thank you for watching today.